Ugh. Ooh. So you got an insomnia video today. At least I think I have if I press the record button right. Just a second. Yeah, there's the record button going. Oh, God. It's like 3 in the morning. And this is where I'm... Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. I mean, the number of ways in which I can take conversation and argumentation about the subjects of this channel is really rather weird and wonderful. I mean, on one side of things, I've got... there's one thing I really want to do, right, is to encourage people to carry on doing whatever traditions they're involved in and to be happy with that and comfortable with that and happy with their sense of identity with it. What I also want is for people to be able to deploy reason, rationality, logic, and understanding to everything about themselves with reference to this particular subject. Okay? Yes, I still say quite categorically that the use of the phrase "the power of prayer" works, or magic works, or words to that effect is essentially just political violence against desperate people. And it is sick to the core. There's so many people out there who are still using the phrase. And I'm going to be saying, I will say that for all time because it is true. Okay? But then there's a third train of thought that I've got. And that's based upon the experiences. And some of these experiences lead to an interpretation of the world which is closer to that of spiritualism but is mixed with animism. Because under some circumstances the experiences seem to lend themselves to that understanding. But again, that understanding is the understanding of spirit, spirituality, mediumship, and that kind of stuff. It's not necessarily taking a particular person with their concerns and creating a result which 100% reliably works, if you get my drift. Issues relating to spiritualism are issues relating to spiritualism. Okay, issues related to energy work are issues related to energy work. They're different. These are two separate, different disciplines. Some people are more advanced. I mean, I've had mediumship readings from really bloody good mediums before, and there was like, that had to be true and honest and accurate and the rest of it because of everything that they said. These are different levels of perception and understanding and type of reading. The things which you can put to the test yourself and know that you are a component in the machine. Okay? Types of psychic reading, types of clairvoyance, types of mediumship and spiritual healing. Also astral projection and dream telepathy. Alright? Those are the 6 things that you can do or you can learn and you can practice, and when you get something happening that's rather weird, you will be more likely to be able to say you're a component in the process. Okay? And with that, because you are the component in the process, you have the ability and the right to experiment with different states of mind, attitudes, senses of perception and awareness, opening up chakras in different ways, really playing with how your sense of perception should go. Remembering, of course, that a lot of these things happen in the state of mind that the pagans call gnosis, but in reality is essentially the same state of mind as the state of mind of prayer. That's essentially it. That is what gnosis really is and has been all along. The preparatory exercises that I mentioned earlier on, they are, so it seems, a good method of approaching the subject of quietening the mind down. Helping your thoughts and feelings to be in alignment, thereby making sure you're more likely to get all of your perception and understanding and willpower together to be able to shift energy using visualization. And you have to practice the shifting of energy using visualization in order to understand what it means to move energy. The circle casting itself from Wicca, which of course came from high magic, which came from the Letter Key of Solomon, which might of course have been a hoax originally, is still a thing which has importance and has some variety of effects. But the debate and the discussion of it is still very complicated, and there's not really enough hard and fast, clear-cut understanding amongst all people who do it to say what it does and what its purpose actually is. There is no hard and fast information about these things, as of yet. Maybe one day in the future it will happen. So this third aspect of my perception and understanding, the animistic aspect, causes me a lot of conflict, because it goes contrary to the way in which I've been trying to bring you people up to think about the subject and to deploy creative problem solving and skepticism. But when it reaches that level, when we're actually dealing with direct visions of things like, people who aren't around anymore, then things is a bit different. There's a certain level there when you would have to say that the perspective of spiritualism, which is different from the perspective of magic, okay, the perspective of spiritualism has things in it which appear to be, on the basis of experience, true. But there's still lots of question marks over what is the precise way of getting the most reliable experience together, so that you can say that you can do this stuff, or indeed do it at will. Even Sylvan Muldoon struggled with how to do his astral projection at will until he spent a lot of his time studying it and working it out. Okay, these things will not happen instantly. This has to be like a sub-current of your life. It shouldn't affect your work, your career, your family. You don't have to tell anyone about that stuff. You just do it yourself, by yourself, and you take notes and you think it through and you look objectively at the phenomena. All right, you need to analyze the phenomena on different levels. Number one, when you actually get a direct vision of something which could be a guide, whether it comes to you in dreams or whatever, okay, when you're dealing with it, you deal with it like a person and treat it politely. All right. After the experience, then you can become more critical and start to work out whether it was just like your diet and nutrition was wrong at the time, whether you had a fever, whether there's something else going wrong, and all these other little things. All right, so that you can just describe the experience, and it becomes just a question of the description of the experience and not what you think it means. Well, the guide stood over there. No, you had an experience. Define the experience. Well, I saw this thing in this expanded state of mind, and it appeared to have the appearance of a person. It looked like this. It was so high. It was male or female. It had this, that, and the other attributes. Looks this, that, and the other age, and so on and so forth. And I had this experience which appeared to be that of this thing communicating to me and saying this or doing that. Okay. Then you can analyze this from all these levels simultaneously. Okay, from the critical analytical one, what actually happened to create that particular experience? What was actually going on there? What particular components did you put into effect? And would you be able to repeat it? Okay, because you're trying to build up, in theory, to repeatability. You're trying to build up to that. You're not there. None of us are there. Okay, repeatably, reliably. And it takes time to think it through. Now, if you're trying to learn this from the point of view of a religionist, let's say Christian, Wiccan, pagan, whatever, all of the language which they will use will be based upon the beliefs that they've got, if they've actually got any beliefs which they have thought through. So there is going to be something skewing your perspective if you listen to a religious person when going through this, okay? When going through the process of trying to work out what is actually true and right and appropriate here, what's actually really going on. And there will always be more and more questions than answers, because there has to be. Okay, this is the fact of it. There will always be more questions than answers, and there will always be things you don't know. If you've had a weird and wonderful experience and all of a sudden your identity or your ego has been blown up to think that you're an incredibly powerful person, okay, well then give yourself a chance to put it to the test. Don't tell anyone, okay? Remember your proverbial witch's pyramid: to dare, to know, to will, and to keep silent, so you don't tell anyone about your experiments. Well, they're not experiments really, because you don't have like a control condition and the rest of that, okay? You're going for an experience. You're trying to generate an experience. And keep careful notes, mental, written, whatever it is you've got, any other way you can enhance your understanding. So, this is what I did. That's what happened. This is the kind of like apparent results. You can't really talk about results with magic, can you? Because you don't actually know what your component in the whole chain of events actually is, and there's too much of this stuff which is unknown. There's nothing wrong with you doing a ritual to get yourself a better job if it makes you feel better. But the fact of the matter is, the real ritual to get the job is to fill out all of your CVs or resumes and fill out the covering letters, fill out the application forms, get them sent off, go to the interviews for things which you know you can do and you have qualifications and experience to be able to do it. And if you don't have those, then you've got to do more studying to build them up. Okay, it's just the way it is. There's an actual material world way of doing an awful lot of stuff. Okay. And if you do that ritual to get yourself a job and you get the job, you still can't say to what extent the ritual actually helped. Now, you can say, there's a psychological thing going on here, and that's great. If you want to use a little bit of superstition to help yourself psychologically, fine. That's fine. Everyone does that to a certain extent. But we also we cannot make the claim that we ourselves did it. We ourselves, because I pressed around in a circle at, whatever time of day it was, away from my wand at all the stars, and I mean, can you actually see that you were actually the one who did it? Now, let's think of the phrase, it does work, okay? If you look at it on face value, it means to say there's a thing there and it works, okay? But let's look at it another way. A thing, does an action, work. It does work, as in it is doing work, right? That would be a better way of seeing it. It's not a question of saying the work it's going to do is what you want it to, the work it's going to do is what you need it to. But it does work in terms of it is doing something. Now, if that's one thing it's doing is just psychological, then essentially it's doing work on your psychological. But I still hate the phrase. I don't want to hear anyone say it does work about any of this stuff. It's wrong. Okay? Learn the stuff which you can put to the test and practice that, and then gain experiences with that, and then try and work out what that could be saying about the universe, and build a hypothetical model, put the hypothetical model to the test, and if you don't get the results you're after, then there's something wrong, either with your hypothetical standpoint, or your approach, or just the way in which you're thinking about it. And then you've got to work out what you're thinking right, what you're thinking wrong. And it could easily be that you were wrong all along, okay? So then you have to capitulate from your previous interpretation and start to build up on something else. So, and I think we have to think that way. Because if we do anything else, then we're not doing ourselves any favors, and we're just becoming very stupid, superstitious people. You got to be able to see that. There's right and wrong in terms of our thinking. All right. Always, no matter what you're thinking, ask yourself, what is wrong with my thinking? In what way? I mean, when we're talking about your social interaction, your family, your friendship, your work, your career, your job interviews, all the rest of that, it's the same thing. Okay? It's the same thing. We got to be able to deploy reason and understanding as to what is required of us, what we can do, what we can't do, and also to ascertain through experimentation as to what is really real and useful. As I say, start with that which you can put to the test. Astral projection. Read The Projection of the Astral Body by Sylvan Muldoon and Hereward Carrington. Regular viewers of my channel would be pissed off with me saying that quite so much, because I carry on. It's one of the best books written on the subject ever in the history of humanity. Seriously. It is, as far as I can tell from experience, a true book. Alright? What I want to do is do another video more about my thoughts about animistic reality and how that connects with spiritualism in terms of spirit mediumship. Because to me personally, intellectually and emotionally, is a whole new level. All right. Oh yeah, and for those of you who are interested in doing radionics and you got yourself the Bacana device, the preparatory exercise I've been mentioning in the past few videos of the body scan with a ball of light, the opening of chakras and doing ascension appears to be very important for that too. As the means of getting yourself and your energy field, so to speak, to feel clearer and for your thoughts to be clearer. So you don't have damaging, detrimental ideas and all the rest of it going on inside you that's causing you anxiety, which could slow down the flow of it all. I mean, for most people, the actual ritual itself is much more either religious in the search for spiritual experience or relating to forms of mediumship for most practitioners. All right. Of course, you've got the psychic reading component in as well, and that becomes part of it. You start to develop that sensitivity. You start to develop, that kind of awareness energy thing. What it's really about, what it feels like, the texture of the experience. These things educate you in terms of like the state of body, the state of mind. And it's just a perpetual path of experimentation and experience, all right? And the real teacher, just as it was mentioned in Nick Frank's book on radionics, the real teacher is the real reward. Okay, it's not like doing a ritual and getting a job and getting good money coming in and all that's lovely. No, the real reward is the challenge and personal development you go through when experimenting with this stuff, performing this stuff, and doing what you can to understand it. Alright, it's a question of changing you. I mean, the way that I see the subject now and the way that I saw the subject when I was 20 is two very different things. I mean, if I was to write a book on magic now, it would have completely different ideas in it, alright, than anything I could have written 20 or 30 years ago. And that's because I've had more time to think, research, analyze, experiment, and play around. This is always an experimental discipline. Alright? And please, please, please remember, the phrase magic works is political violence against desperate people. And it can take both desperate people and greedy people and drive them insane. Clinically fucking insane. And that's why I will always have issues with the world in which I inhabit until such time as it's grown up properly. I'm going to try and get some sleep now. And I hope that there's been something in this content which has given you pause for thought.